Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm your boy, your brother, Carrington Brown, and today I want to talk to you about conflict, right? And not just conflict in general, but dealing with it in the proper way, right? When you're in a relationship with somebody, no matter who they are, your child, your mother, your father, brother, sister, boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, spouse, doesn't matter who, co-worker, right? When we talk about dealing with conflict, there is a 99.9% chance that you will experience conflict in relationships. So it's impossible for you to avoid it. And all you can really do, and the best thing that you can do, is prepare yourself and equip yourself to actually do it properly. So that when you experience the conflict, the outcome or the result of the conflict will be a closer relationship between you and that individual, understanding between you and that individual, and most importantly, as an individual, elevated emotional maturity, right? Because when we get in conflict and our emotions get to rising, we allow that to steer us rather logic and truth, right? So what I want to do is I want to give you the 7 steps of dealing with conflict resolution, right? So step 1 is recognizing what animal you are. And I know that sounds random, but let me explain, right? So when we talk about dealing with conflicts, there are 2 animals, right, that are often used to describe the different types of individuals in conflict or how they handle conflict, right, on both sides of the spectrum. So you have a turtle and you have a skunk. So the turtle in conflict is the individual that honestly likes to run or hide or avoid from conflict. When conflict begins to come up and the heat begins to rise, they're the individual that, you know, they go into their shell. They try to avoid it. They try to walk away from it. They don't do too much expressing of how they feel in the conflict because it's an uncomfortable scenario. Now, the skunk, on the other hand, is the individual that has no issue with conflict and will let you know everything they have on their mind, everything that they're feeling, and they'll just express it. Now, you first have to understand the conflict, whether you're the turtle or the skunk. The second thing you have to do as it pertains to the animal, you have to understand that as a skunk, as a turtle, it's my job, role, and responsibility when I go into conflict to try to be more like the other animal. If I know I'm naturally a turtle, in this conflict, this next opportunity in conflict, it's my job and responsibility to try to be more skunkish as it pertains to expressing myself. If I'm a skunk, I need to try to be more turtleish and not run from the conflict, but relax a little bit when it comes to me talking and allow myself to listen more, right? So step 1 is recognizing what animal you are. Step 2 is ask God for wisdom. Yes, in any situation, especially conflict, you want to make sure that you're being led by the wisdom of God rather than knowledge of you, yourself, and your emotions. Because when you connect yourself with God and you say, God, conflict is arising, I don't want to pop off. I pray that at this moment you minimize myself, maximize your phenomenal Holy Spirit within me, Lord God. Speak through me, Lord God, and help me control my emotions, my thoughts, and my mouth, Lord God. That's you giving God permission to step into this situation and allow this environment to grow you as an individual. And as long as God is leading you, as long as the information of what you're expressing is from or is sourced from the wisdom of God, you're really in a place and a space to where it's very challenging for you to lose. And when I say lose, I'm not talking about losing the argument or losing in the conversation. What I'm saying is losing in the form of allowing yourself to be led by emotions, right? So step 1, recognize what animal you are. Step 2 is ask God for wisdom. Step 3 is make the first move. Now, I know what you're thinking. If somebody pisses me off, if somebody upsets me, I'm not trying to have that conversation right now because I know the way that I feel. If we had this conversation right now, I'm about to turn up. But when we talk about dealing with conflict in a positive way, you take a second if you need to, breathe, calm down, but you go after that conversation. You say, hey, let's sit down and talk about what did we just experience or what we just went through, because I don't want neither one of us to allow the way that we feel to linger on. And what that truly does is it shows the other person that, hey, they want to have this conversation, right? Whether you're right or whether you're wrong, that's you expressing your maturity and letting the other individual know, hey, they care about me enough to come and pursue having this conversation so we can be back on one accord, right? And when you show somebody, let me say it like this. One of my favorite quotes, people do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. You going and pursuing the reconciliation through this conversation, that's you showing somebody how much you really care. And it's necessary. So let's talk step 4. Step 4 is begin with what's my fault. In any form of conflict, Everybody has a fault. There is something that everybody did wrong, whether it's just as small as I didn't hold the door, whether it's just as small as the way that I responded was short and indirect rather than directly looking at you, talking to you, whether the fault was my body language. No matter what it was, everybody has a fault in conflict. Therefore, when you do go and pursue the conflict and you say, hey, let's have this conversation, instead of saying, you did this, you made me feel like this, start with, I apologize for my body language. I apologize for not doing this. I apologize for being short. Because you want to let that individual know that you're not coming to them just in attack mode and looking to attack them. That's you letting that individual know that, hey, I understand I had a role to play in this conflict as well. And you starting with what's your fault is you saying, hey, I understand that I made a mistake as well. So let me apologize for my mistake before we even talk about the experience that we had and you even express, what your perspective was. And then we even reveal, where your fault was in this situation. Start with yourself and then allow the conversation to grow from there. And then that other individual to start talking about what's their fault. Let them point it out. Right? Rather than you point it out. So now, step 5 is listen for understanding, not to respond. Right? Let me say it again. Listen for understanding, not to respond. In a lot of situations, the reason why conflict is extended is because when in conflict and having conversation, we're listening, but we listen until we hear something, we create a response, and then really we're just hearing the person talk until they're done talking so that we can respond. That's not how you handle it. When you're dealing with conflict, you listen to everything that individual is saying. And then after they say what they say, you allow yourself as they're talking to process what they're saying. And then after they say what they say, then you respond. Right? Don't listen just to respond. Listen to understand what they're saying, understand their perspective, understand where they're coming from, and then respond back and give them a response from a place of love and understanding and not just attack or not even defense, but of love and once again, understanding. Step 6 when dealing with conflict is to fix the problem, not the person. Now, this is big because a lot of times we'll be in conflict with somebody and at the end of the conversation, we will forget why we started having this conversation. And the reason why is because a lot of times in conflict, we just naturally try to not only fix this problem, but to fix the whole person. Yeah, right now we talked about the fact that you only left a little bit of juice in the milk carton last night. But then I also brought up the fact that you always leave your clothes on the floor. You'll wash the clothes but don't dry them. You never wash dishes. You don't put gas in the car. I never come home to a home-cooked meal. I don't like how you talked to the kids the other day. I don't like that you didn't answer my phone call earlier today. So we take the beginning or what really created this conflict. We allow other issues to be piled upon it simply because we never had the conversation necessary to deal with those other issues. So it's like now because we're having this conflict conversation, let me talk about all this stuff and point out all the issues that I got with you rather than just dealing with this. Forget that. Whatever caused the conflict, sit down and focus on that issue. Don't bring in anything else. Fix and focus on that specific problem, that specific issue, and fix that rather than attempting to fix the person. And so the last and final step, step 7, is focus on the reconciliation of the relationship. And this is why this final step is so important. A lot of times when dealing with conflict, we reach a point in the conflict where we desire more to be right than to be reconciled back with the individual. Whatever we have a conflict over, whatever the issue is, that has caused a separation between us. And now that we're talking about it, I care more about being right, proving to you that you're wrong, than fixing the relationship. And that's a problem because when you focus on being right rather than reconciling the relationship, you open the door for you to say things, do things, and allow things to happen that'll really further separate you from the individual. So when you're dealing with conflict, you have to make sure that your focus is on reconciling the relationship rather than being right in this argument. So once again, when we talk about dealing with conflict and how to resolve conflict properly, you first need to understand and point out, what animal am I? Am I the skunk or am I the turtle? Second, you have to ask God for wisdom in this situation. You don't want to be led by your emotions. You want to be led by the wisdom of God. 3, you want to make the first move. Let that individual know that it is important to you to fix this issue, fix this challenge, and to fix this problem. 4, when having this conversation, when you're pursuing this conversation, start with what's your fault. Don't start with the other person. Begin with what mistake you made in this situation, and then allow the conversation to flow from there. 5, listen for understanding rather than to respond. When the other individual is speaking to you, don't listen until you hear a point that you need to respond or react to. Listen to truly understand them, understand their feelings, their emotions, their perspective, so you can respond from a place of understanding and love. 6, focus on fixing the problem rather than fixing the person. Don't allow all the other issues that you have with this individual be added on top of the foundational problem that caused this conversation. Focus on fixing that one problem, and after this is resolved, give yourself some time and then have those other conversations, right? And the 7th and final step is to focus on reconciliation of the relationship. Why? Because if your focus is to be right over reconciling the relationship, this conflict conversation can easily tear the relationship further apart, and that is not what we desire. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. I hope and pray that it helped you. If you don't already, follow me on social media. I'm at TheCarringtonBrown on all social media platforms, and I look forward to speaking with you guys again soon, all right? Peace out.